Alright, we're going to change gears a little bit here for a minute. Been hitting that combine video is kind of hard, so figured I'd do something a little different for today. I did screw around with the combine for a while, up till I came home. I got the rear axle widened out all the way so that now that it looks better and won't be so tippy, and made the push block framework to lean up against the far side of the grain tank so that we got something to push off of to start that process. Dad wants to buy a tool for the air hammer before we get too far into it, so hopefully next weekend we will start working on that, and hopefully I got some parts that show up so that I can get my rotary screen put back together and on it and get the elevator. I decided I'm gonna switch all the elevator parts over to the new tube just because I got to take it apart anyway to fix that dent in the top and straighten out the bottom. So if I'm going to have to take it apart, might as well just put the new tube on. So anyway, in that plowing video I did, I had a bunch of questions about these plows, or this plow. This is an Oliver Model 100 PlowMaster. This series was released in 1940, and it was one of the first plows Oliver released to use the three-piece throwaway Radex bottoms. So, point, shin, moldboard. It would have originally been with the Streamline 70s and the Streamline 60s, and obviously the 80, which never got styled. And then it was built clear up until the Super Series, when the 4240 and 4340 plows came out and basically replaced this whole solid beam style of plow that Oliver built. That's a Model 314B, Model 134B, all the plows that had the solid plow beam with the trip hitch basically got replaced when that's a 4240 over there. That series plow replaced, or that style plow with the trip beam and everything replaced all this. It underwent a couple changes over its production period, the most noticeable one being in the right around 1950. They switched from, this is a carriage bolt, what they call a carriage bolt wheel. It's actually got carriage bolts in it with nuts instead of lug bolts. They replaced this style of rim with a standard 6-bolt implement rim like that. That's the most noticeable difference you'll see on them. And they had several variations and options. This is a 214 with a rolling landside, which is what Oliver called this style. This is not a tail wheel, this is technically a rolling landside. So this is kind of your standard, this is the most common 100 PlowMaster you'll find, is 214 set up just like this. They were offered in 214, or 212, 214, 216, 312, and 314. Then they had a one bottom version, which for some reason they felt the need to have its own model designation. That was a Model 101 PlowMaster. And then they had an adjustable frame plow, which basically, those are real easy to tell because it doesn't have this horseshoe up front that ties the plow beams together. The plow beams wrap around and they're bent 90 like this, and it's all one piece. And then they overlap in the center, and it's got a row of bolt holes right here. And those plows were adjustable from 212 to 216, and that would have been a Model 20 or 102 PlowMaster. So this frame is the most common with the rolling landside. On occasion, you will find them with a live tail wheel like this one, which obviously live tail wheel. The tail wheel linkage is actually attached to the lift linkage, and the rear or the tail wheel lifts the plow up. The three bottom plows all have live tail wheels. Those aren't this is what I call a drawbar hanger. It hangs off the drawbar when it's up in the air, and that's what holds the tail of the plow off the ground. The one bottom, I've never seen one with a live tail wheel. Not saying you couldn't put one on there if you really wanted to, but the one bottoms, for the most part, all will either have just a regular long land side or a short land side with a rolling land side bolted to it like that. And that there is another 214. I think we have a 216 floating around somewhere, but I can't remember. I think we've got 8 or 9 PlowMasters now, including one. We got a 314, we got a bunch of 214s, and I thought we have a 216 somewhere, but I cannot remember for the life of me. The other thing that is different on a plow with a live tail wheel is this drawbar stop is longer. Notice that one's hanging down, and this one is basically sticking straight out. It's got less travel to it. Whereas this one, as you can see, it's got the tall stop on it, and this one's flush with the top of the drawbar. And then all these plows, they had 2 hitch options. You could have a regular clevis hitch with what they called a breakaway pin, which was basically a soft throwaway hitch pin, which was designed to shear in half if you hit a rock. I've never actually seen one of those on a plow other than in a book. The vast majority, I'd say 99.9% of the Oliver plows you find of this frame style will have a Holland breakaway hitch, which, if I can find a spot to set you where you can see it. Yeah, you might be able to see it if I set you right here. These plows are designed to work with a D-ring like this, and when you snap it in, it hooks like that, and basically this jaw has a long tongue in the back, and this spring is pushing on a cam roller that engages this. And basically it's just a matter of tension. If you put too much tension on the system, these springs collapse, that roller slides up and releases the hitch. So, and obviously if you want to hook the plow, that's a manual release, and you let the D-ring go. You can kinda, maybe, I don't think I got enough light in here. You can kinda see the roller right up there. So that's a Holland breakaway hitch. Like I say, they are designed to pull off of a D-ring. You do not pull with these. You do not pull these things off of a twist clevis, which you will see a lot of guys do. And the reason being is, if you put a twist clevis in there, this hitch is supposed to ride down in the bottom of that hook like that. A twist clevis will ride right up on the point because the clevis is too tall and the way it fits inside this guard. And you will trip the hitch prematurely because you've got too much leverage over that spring, and you wear the hitch out really fast pulling like that. So like I say, if you got a Holland hitch like this, you got to pull it off of a D-ring. Several other plow manufacturers, Alice Chalmers, Moline, those are the 2 I can think of right offhand. Use these. Alice Chalmers was basically the same way. They put the hitch on the plow. Moline had a little different style. They actually had a flat tab with a bolt hole in it, and you put the breakaway hitch on your drawbar, and there was a D-ring welded to the plow drawbar that you snapped in. And basically, this eyelet here, you would have a rope or a pull rod or something in, so that if you broke the plow away from the tractor in the field, you can grab the rope, pick up on the drawbar, back in, snap into the hitch, and off you go. So that's the Holland hitch. And then as far as the trip mechanism on these goes, this is what Oliver called the rooster comb lift. You'll hear it called the rooster comb plow, the coxcomb plow. You'll hear some really weird guys calling them the ladder lift plow. No, it's a rooster comb. Basically, this bar right here is your catch. Right now, it's obviously in the up position. The first pull on the trip rod, there's a dog in there that will pick up and release. That notch right there is what locks the plow up, and when you trip that rod, the first trip will lift that this rod up off that notch and drop the plow, and then the second lift or second trip will drop this catch paw, which catches this dog, pulls that back, drops the coxcomb, and then the coxcomb goes down and engages the rollers on the wheel, and then it will basically just walk the plow up out of the ground, and then once it gets to that last cog, it has a little bit of mechanical advantage, and it will actually throw the coxcomb back up and re-engage it on that paw. There's 2 springs on these things that if they are not in good shape, these plows physically will not work. This barrel spring is the coxcomb return spring, and if that's weak, it will not have enough force to throw the coxcomb back up and re-engage this paw, and it will stay down far enough to stay engaged with the wheel. Well, if it's really bad, it'll stay down far enough to re-engage with the wheel, and it'll keep trying to lift. Otherwise, it will partially return about like that, and it won't reset the trip mechanism, and you can't trip the plow. So there's that. And the other spring is a little torsion spring right behind this catch paw. And if that's broken, it won't let the coxcomb reset, which won't reset it won't let the coxcomb reset, and then the plow will keep tripping. It'll just keep tripping over and over and over. And you can always tell the guys at the plow days that don't know what's wrong with their plow, because you'll either see where they can't get them to trip, or they just keep right on tripping. There's a guy in Ohio that is remaking a spring kit for these plows, which should be that spring, that spring, that spring, this spring, and 1, 2, 3, 4. I could have swore there was 5 springs in there, but I'm trying to remember where the other one's at. Maybe there is only 4. I thought there was 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe it's those 4 and the 2 for the hitch. But either way, there's a guy in Ohio that has a spring kit now for these. And back when we first got this plow, because this is actually the first one we bought when we got my 66, Dad bought the last 2 available kits that still showed up in Agco Parts Warehouse. That's not to say there's not some more sitting out there on a dealer shelf. They're just not in the computer system. So we ended up getting so many of these plows that Dad ended up having some sets made too, but he's been selling them over the years, and I honestly don't know if he has any left. So yeah. Like I say, big thing about these plows and is that barrel spring and that torsion spring. If these 2 springs aren't in good shape, this plow will not work. And you can't replace this spring with just a regular compression spring, because when this thing goes all the way down, that spring actually collapses in on itself. That's why it's barrel shaped. These outside couple coils will end up inside the spring. So you can't replace that with just a regular round compression spring. And you'll see guys that have tried, they'll stuff like nuts and washers and shit in behind that spring to try to get some tension back out of it, but it doesn't work. You gotta have that spring in good shape. That being said, these plows come out of the ground better than any plow ever, any clutch lift plow ever built. Because a clutch lift plow, which is like this 134B here, when you trip this lever, there's actually a couple dogs inside that clutch, and you basically lock the wheel up and physically engage the wheel to the plow axle, and it has to pick the whole plow up out of the ground, which works when the ground's dry. But if you have wet stalks, or it's a little slimy on top of the ground, or heavy residue or anything like that where it reduces your traction coefficient, all you'll basically do is lock the wheel up and slide, and you won't lift the plow out of the ground. These things have so much mechanical advantage because it's like walking the plow up a ramp that, well, obviously you can see this thing's just got 5-rib implement tires on it, whereas you'll see a lot of clutch plows have a knobby tire or a bar tread tire or something on the clutch side to get the tire to bite. These things that come out of the ground where no other plow will. They are a really sweet little, and they're simple. Everything is right out where you can see it. You don't have to tear the wheel apart to rebuild the clutch. It's all right there. They're just a real nice little plow. The only thing that sucks about them is they're a light frame plow. So sometimes if the ground's hard, you're going to struggle to get them to go in. But that's kind of a thing with most older trip plows that are a light frame like this. Like that 4240 over there, I bet that plow weighs another 250, 300 pounds over this thing. So, yeah. Kind of a little history of the PlowMasters, because I had a bunch of people ask how that lift worked. So, figured we'd take a break from the combines and do a little PlowMaster video here for you. So, anyhow, hope I answered everybody's questions and gave you a little insight into what these plows are all about. So, okay, well, after I went in and went to take my afternoon nap before work, I realized that there was a couple points about these things that I had kind of glossed over. Firstly, paint, which I actually had a guy ask me about this in the comments on these, or in the comment section on that video. As you'll see, this one we got red wheels on it. That one's red with green wheels. Technically, for a carriage bolt plow, this one is correct. The early ones are supposed to be, or would have been, red frame with green wheels. Later, probably about the same time they switched to the 6-bolt wheels, during the fleet lines, they would have went to green or red wheels with a green frame. That being said, because they just built an absolute boatload of these plows, most guys that have them just paint them to match whatever tractor they're going to pull it with. We were setting this one up to pull with my 66. We were going to paint it red wheels, green frame. Nobody's going to call you out on it. That's basically what everybody does. They paint them to match whichever tractor they're pulling them with. If they're going to paint them or pull them behind a 70, normally they paint them right with green wheels and a red frame, just because that would be behind a 70. So basically it would look like that plow if they were a later one. Secondly, these plows in the later years were offered with hydraulic lift. That kit could also be retrofitted back to the trip lift plows, which basically you take, this arm stays here because it's welded to the axle, but all this crap, this plate, this everything associated with the lift, the coxcomb, the axle stop, all that just unbolts and comes off, and the lift rigging for the hydraulic cylinder bolts over here on the frame. And you will see a lot of older plow, carriage bolt plows that have been converted because the obviously, like I just explained, the kit would back fit to the older plows. Most of the time when guys converted these plows to hydraulic lift, they didn't change out the hub. So it'll still have the coxcomb lift hub on this side, but everything else will be gone. If the plow came out of the factory hydraulic lift, it'd have that style hub on both sides. And last point is this style lift worked so well and was so tough that if you really wanted to and you had the need for it because your equipment didn't have a hydraulic lift or whatever the situation may be, you could order coxcomb lift on a 4240, a 4340, or, and I can't believe it, and I have actually seen one in person at an auction, you could order it on a 4440 pipe plow, which would have came out with a Super 99. And I don't know if you've ever seen if anybody's ever seen a 4440 pipe plow. It is the pull type version of my 4-bottom pipe plow that could go all the way up to 6-bottom if you added bottoms onto it. So you could have a 6-bottom pull type trip lift coxcomb plow. I have seen one. It was a 5-bottom, if I remember correctly, at Nelson LeCount's auction down here in Wakarusa. I was just a little kid, but he was selling off his collection and he had one. And that was, you had to have been a man to trip that thing all day. I can't imagine how hard, because you got to overcome a little bit of force just to, on the second trip's not bad because all you're doing is tripping the coxcomb down, but on that first one, you have to overcome a little bit of the weight of the plow to trip that thing and get the lift rod to release, or the lock rod to release. So I can't imagine tripping one of those things all day, but they built at least one because I have seen it. Now that being said, on these later plows, they were beefed up a little bit. They added to the coxcomb, they got a little taller and thicker, and some of the lift rigging obviously got beefed up accordingly, but for all intents and purposes, functionally, the design never changed, and you could get it on a newer plow. So, paint, hydraulic lift, later plows. I think that's actually everything. So, on that note, this is actually it, and we'll catch y'all on the next one.